A little over a year ago, the Nets made one of the biggest moves in NBA history, trading multiple pieces to multiple teams to pair James Harden with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. And the immense offensive talent of those three players immediately brought championship expectations to Brooklyn. However, in the 365 plus days since that trade, that heralded trio has only played in 16 of a possible 113 games altogether. Whether that be due to injuries, protocol issues, Kyrie Irving's own decision-making, or a combination of all three, the three of them just can't seem to all get on the floor together at the same time. And with serious question marks about the longevity of their collective partnership moving forward, those championship expectations might need to be reset. When the Nets made the Harden trade, the red flags were pretty obvious. How would three ball-dominant superstars work together? How would they play all three of them together and still defend? In the constantly changing landscape of team building in the NBA, would an inexperienced coach in Steve Nash be able to manage all the egos of all three guys and keep them happy long enough to agree to stay with the team long term? After all, at the time of the trade, nothing was promised between the three. And now, with an incredibly murky future moving forward, everything is potentially on the line for them this season. Durant's health, Kyrie's status as a full-time player, looming contract extensions, even the friendship of Irving and Durant, which has really been the foundation of this era of Nets basketball as a whole, could be shattered within the next couple of months. It might sound dramatic, but that's the NBA in 2022. Now, even with the doom and gloom of this video, and trust me, I'm going to get to that, I do need to get one thing straight. I passionately believe that if the Nets were fully healthy in the playoffs last year, they were the favorites to win the title. They would have beaten the Bucks in round 2, as evidenced by them nearly winning the series despite the injuries. They certainly would have beaten the Hawks, and they would have given anyone from the West a real run in the finals. The concerning part about that, if you're a Nets fan though, is the East is much better this year. Milwaukee is a different beast than they were in that series last year, and you could make the argument that beating the Nets last season was their breakthrough moment, with winning the title itself just adding to the confidence of an incredibly good team. Plus, other contenders like the Heat and Bulls have popped up, and even the Sixers are always lurking. So even if they would have been the title favorites last year, that guarantees them nothing this year, and they might have just missed their chance a season ago. Typically, championship windows close way earlier than we expect, especially with veteran teams. And maybe last year was just supposed to be the Nets' year, and they simply missed their opportunity. But even with that said, nobody can deny how scary the Nets are when fully healthy. So anytime you have that kind of championship ceiling, it really can't be ignored. But what also can't be ignored is the Nets' injury issues. Kevin Durant is 33 years old and less than 2 years removed from a torn Achilles. James Harden is 32 years old and less than a year removed from a hamstring injury that supposedly took him an entire offseason to recover from. And Kyrie Irving is almost 30 years old, which typically is the start of a significant drop-off in play for average-sized guards like Irving, and he also has a long injury history that includes the ankle sprain that took him out of last year's playoffs, as well as multiple knee issues in the past. The health concerns are so widespread that it's difficult to even pick which player to be the most concerned about. Durant is the oldest and has the most severe injuries in his past, not to mention a build that is proven to be prone to injuries. Harden has taken the most punishment of the three and takes care of his body the worst, and Kyrie is, well, he's Kyrie. Despite their very clear championship ceiling, building a team around three aging perimeter players with injury issues and overlapping skill sets could be a recipe for disaster. And that doesn't even include any of the recently reported free agency issues that could possibly be on the horizon either, which I'll get to later. The bottom line is, at any point of the season or postseason, an injury of any variety could doom the Nets season. And that exact nightmare scenario almost came true a couple of nights ago when Kevin Durant narrowly missed a serious knee injury in a collision with Bruce Brown. Now, the issues that plague the Nets plague every team in the league that builds around a few superstars and not much else, but few teams in the league, if any, are as reliant on their stars to be successful as the Nets are, and also have stars that are as injury prone as the Brooklyn Big Three. That's the reality of the rebuilding path the Nets embarked on all those years ago when they started from nothing. An awful roster with limited future first round picks of their own, and ended up clearing cap space to get Durant and Irving in the first place. The NBA is a star-driven league, and the Nets might have the best collection of stars in the league, but that has also left them with few team building options or depth outside of their star-studded trio. Any Kyrie trade rumors are almost surely a hoax. None of their young players are real trade assets, and they used all their first-round picks to get Harden in the first place. With all those moves somehow resulting in just 16 games of actually seeing the big three in action together. But as we all know, injuries are not the only thing that are preventing the Nets from having all three of these guys together this season. For most of this season, prior to Durant's recent knee injury, the Nets would have had the opportunity to see their star trio together for a significant stretch for the first time since the trade. However, Kyrie Irving chose to not satisfy the requirement that he would have to meet in order to play in the Barclays Center this season, which has led to an unprecedented situation that as of this moment means Kyrie is only available for road games. And just by the way, it doesn't seem like he's changing his mind anytime soon, which speaks to the biggest issue with counting on Kyrie to be a critical part of a championship team, and that's just his unpredictability. Whether it be injury issues, and last season wasn't the first time that he missed significant time in the playoffs due to injury, protocol issues, or just not being available, along with, quite frankly, the reality that he could just retire at any moment, at any point moving forward. And the situation around Kyrie this year has led to a lot of people asking if Brooklyn is capable of winning a title even without Kyrie, even in the, in my opinion, unlikely scenario that he is not available for home games through the end of the season, and he doesn't even in postseason games play in home games for Brooklyn. Even in that scenario, many people believe that the Nets still could win the title even without Kyrie full time. And while that opinion is debatable, it's very, very clear that their margin for error is much slimmer if they don't have Kyrie around or if one of any of the three of these guys gets hurt. But even with all of the injury issues and protocol issues and Kyrie stuff, it's important to note that the fact that we're even having a conversation about the possibility of the Nets still being able to win a title with only two of those three guys speaks to their championship ceiling that does exist when all three of these guys play together. And as for the future of the three of them playing together beyond this season, winning that championship this season might be their only way to fully make sure that all three of these guys are ready to go and on the team next year. Because, and this is the last piece of the puzzle here, there are questions revolving around Harden's free agency this upcoming offseason as it relates to him going anywhere but Brooklyn. This is not an issue for Kevin Durant. He is signed long-term, and presumably this is not an issue for Kyrie either, although you never know with him. But Harden specifically has never committed long-term to the Nets. He said before the season he wasn't going to sign an extension even after Durant signed his, and there are constant rumors about the possibility of Harden going to, more specifically, the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, there are other options for him potentially, but in terms of an environment in which he could potentially win a title, a sign and trade with Philadelphia is the best chance for Harden to go somewhere else outside of Brooklyn and have a real shot at that title. The most realistic scenario at the moment would be Harden getting swapped to Philadelphia in some kind of Ben Simmons package, and that is ultimately how that situation ends. And even though getting Simmons back would be a huge boost for Brooklyn rather than just losing Harden straight up, and who, by the way, might just be a better fit with Kyrie and Durant, by the way. Just the fact that these rumors are out there are concerning if you're a Nets fan like me that is hoping to see these guys play together for a long, long time. And by the way, it's also worth noting that even if the Nets do go on to win the title with or without Kyrie, I'm not sure that that guarantees that Harden would stay with the Nets. Maybe that frees him up to go somewhere else the way it did with Kawhi when he left Toronto. If Harden does get that first title on his resume, maybe he doesn't feel an obligation to Brooklyn anymore. He delivered on what they traded for him for, and it allows him to go wherever he wants to, potentially to a situation with Daryl Morey in Philly that he's way more comfortable with. And the bottom line is the future in Brooklyn has never been murkier. You have no idea what's going to happen with Kevin Durant moving forward. This could be the last year of his true prime. You don't know what's going to happen with Kyrie the rest of this year or moving forward either. He could retire this offseason. He could be ineligible to play in home games for the rest of the year. That could limit the Nets' chances and potentially ruin their chances of winning a title, potentially shattering his relationship with Kevin Durant, leading to all kinds of other craziness. And as I just detailed, James Harden might be on a different team as well. And even if they got Simmons in exchange for Harden and Kyrie comes back next year as a full-time player and KD is still really good, there's no guarantee that that nucleus of players is going to deliver a championship to Brooklyn the way it seemed like it was going to be inevitable that they would get one once all three of these guys got together. And so you could make the argument that out of every single team around the league right now that is a real contender for the title, no team in the league has more on the line in terms of the future of their franchise, their organization, their championship core potentially than the Brooklyn Nets. And I'm just hoping, not as a Nets fan, but as an NBA fan in general, that they get a real, legit, healthy shot at the finals this year, because quite frankly, it might be their last chance. And yeah, that's the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, you want more people to see it, leave a like rating on it, subscribe to the channel as well. My name's Tucker. I'll see y'all next time.